Hello and welcome to the Global Discussion. I'm Simon Hodgkins, and today I'm delighted to be joined by another creative leader and thinker, Ian McColl. Ian, you're very welcome to the podcast, and let's begin by asking you to introduce yourself to our international audience. So over to you, Ian.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ian McColl. I'm delighted to be here on Simon's wonderful podcast and privileged too. I am a creative communicator in the marketing field. My job is essentially as a graphic design based, art director based person is to bring a whole pile of facets together that really promote my clients' brands and services. I have within this cooperative that I run called Therefour, essentially 4 people, but it's growing every time with a wonderful panel of art directors, designers, writers who I really prefer to work with. They're just brilliant illustrators, photographers. We're kind of like the whole gambit, and I cherry pick stuff and people to work with my clients, and I front face it and work with some of today's great clients. I'm really privileged to, after many years in advertising, to have started this initiative about 10 years ago. So yeah, again, you could call me, if you will, a creative lubricator. That sense is I bring ideas, I bring things together. I work with what I would see as brilliant people, but also as a creative director. My job is to know where I can find the idea. Well, sometimes it comes from myself, sometimes it comes from the writers I work with, sometimes even back in agency land. I mean, I'd be working late, as we all put in ridiculous hours for pitches and stuff like that. You'd be working on a campaign, and you'd be scribbling away, and you'd be going. I might have a cleaning gentleman or lady pass by and look at the table, and they'd go kind of what you doing? And I'm going, well, I've got this blah blah blah. What do you think? And they might have an idea, and they go, well, if you turn it this way, it might be better. And I go, wow, they're right. So the trick is knowing where the idea is and being able to harness it and bring it in. So that's what I do, whether I come up with it myself or work with people who do. And again, it's a huge team effort. I mean, we have essentially some notions that have really resonated with me in the last few years in my time having set up this cooperative. And again, the discipline in marketing, the discipline that I really love, is essentially in this world of graphic design, digital, AI, advertising, whether it's standard, traditional, or whatever. What I really enjoy is getting down with the people, creating theater. I mean, you go back to one of my favorite guys, a guy called Confucius. Now, he was a guy ahead of his time, and he had this wonderful quote, and it kind of really resonates in the advertising field, in the marketing field. This quote was, "Tell me, and I will forget. Show me, and I will remember. But involve me, and I will understand." That's what I love, getting down on the streets, creating theater at the point of purchase, sales, promotion, activation, experiential, get people to feel the brand. So that in itself really gets me up in the morning and gets me inspired. Don't get me wrong, I love crafting a good 48 sheet, and I love working with great production companies who are also kind of connected with the Therefour offering, where we work on wonderful video content and animated digital ads and stuff. So look, but the actual experiential end of things, where you're meeting people and you're getting them to experience positive things about the brands or services that you work with your clients. So that's utopia if you mix all these disciplines together. I mean, you go back to one of my favorite case studies, where I worked with an agency within my Therefour consultancy thing, where we worked with the Vodafone brand, and they were finishing off their sponsorship of Electric Picnic, which is as you may know, our audience, international, is the biggest musical festival in this country. So it's down in Meath, Kildare area, and kind of acres and acres of hundreds of acts. But we invented for Vodafone a guy called Dr. Beat. Essentially, the insight here is that people going to Electric Picnic may go to see one or two bands, the Foals, you know, or London Grammar, or Chic, or whatever, but they're not aware possibly of the 200 and something other acts and bands that are there. So we felt it's Dr. Beat's job to help them with this and enhance the experience. So what we did was we set up a surgery in the charging tent in Electric Picnic, and we had signs outside as Dr. Beat will see you now and all that sort of stuff. And we had a couple of nurses, wonderful nurses who'd kind of encourage you, but there was always a queue outside the charging tent, the most popular tent in the festival. Yeah, no, I mean, forget Pet Shop Boys. Sorry, we're charging our phone, you know, not quite. But so they'd be queuing in here and they'd be coming in, and what Dr. Beat would do would be he would ask them who they've come to see, and they tell him, and he'll go and he had this big book that he'd open up, and we had all the lists of all the acts that were like each other, or if you like this, you might like this, member get member scenario. And he'd say, well, if you're coming here to see Pet Shop Boys, there are, what about London Grammar or whatever? So you'd have 2 or 3 of these people with headphones listening to snippets while he made them dance around, and it just really enjoy the madness that was ensuing. And then at the end of his session with whatever individuals, he'd give them a prescription with the name and the date and the time of the bands that they might like to see, and he'd send them packing on their way with their charged phone. How happy we were. So, and we led this. We had this the Electric Picnic lead up, where we had him on digital, where we had videos of him and stills of him acting out songs and artists who were at the festival. And if you guessed them right, and you were in the mix to win EP tickets. So it was a win-win thing. So look, we had so much fun with this, and so did Vodafone. So they kind of went out with a bang, but they loved Dr. Beat, and it was just such a wonderful experience to be working on something as theatrical as this. On a slightly one other, as I bore you senseless with another case study, we did a wonderful thing, myself and my writing partner Kevin. A few years ago, we were asked by their event agency, who'd got the job of dressing. They just won. There's a huge area for media, a most prized area for media in this country, and it is the Dublin Airport, the Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 doors. So you've got this Coca-Cola had finished their contract, and this Bank of Ireland had basically won the gig for 5 years. And it was coming up to Christmas, and their marketing agency approached me saying, we've been asked to come up with a concept for the airport for the bank. Now, we know that people are kind of a bit wary of banks at times, kind of like they're selling their products, they're making money and all that sort of stuff. And so we have an opportunity to kind of add sentiment as opposed to sell mortgages and products and loans and have you, and just essentially wish people happy Christmas and get them to feel that the Bank of Ireland, the bank, really understood them and were with them all the way. So what we were able to do, and this is, again, we were able to use real people, except they were just the man on the street. So my sense was, we have people coming out through these arrival doors, and people coming out through these. I mean, the Irish nation are a nation of travelers and immigrants and mad yokes who are constantly traveling. But the big thing at Christmas is we miss them all, and it's Ireland with a huge sense of family, really, really loves the return, and sometimes it can be years. So I went off to my first meeting with the marketing director of the bank and the agency directors, and we went, and the people from the DAA, Dublin Airport Authority, and we did airside and whatever, walked right through the airport to look at the areas that we would market and we would put up. So my sense was, before I went, I wanted to dress the terminals as Christmas presents. My sense was that, you know, the Christmas presents would be the people, you know. So we went along, and I sat down with Kevin, and I said, let's have a quick brainstorm. We had literally the quickest brainstorm I've ever had, and I went armed with a line, and we walked airside, and we talked, and I motioned to the Bank of Ireland people that really this should be about sentiment. This should be about the joy, the celebration of loved ones reuniting, sometimes after years, coming in from Australia. I mean, it's packed, and it's also it's a very media focused area at Christmas. You find that a lot of the news stations are saying, seeing the people travel back, and a few years earlier we had a world recession, so things were tough, you know. So what we did was, I walked airside, and one of the ladies, one of the marketing ladies from the DAA, asked me and said, look, I know it's early, but have you any ideas? And I said, well, if I tell you, I'll have to kill you. And she said, oh, no, I don't care. Just tell me what do you have? Because we're so excited about this. This is the first time we've ever had this media space, and it's so exciting. So I said, look, I'm thinking of dressing this up as a Christmas present, the whole of your doors, and having a tag in the middle within the ribbons, and it'll read, as the people come out the doors, it'll read, the best Christmas present ever is about to walk through these doors. The anticipation being electric. She looked at me when I said the line, and she started to weep. And I went, that's brand utopia, when you connect. She says, oh, my sister, she's coming back after 4 years in Australia, and I haven't seen her. And she got teary-eyed. She says, oh my God, that's so right. So I kind of knew we were on to a winner. So we were able then to work on our teaser campaign, saying, just when you thought the doll's house was the best thing ever, the bike was the best thing ever, the train set was the best thing ever, now the best thing, even topping that, is about to walk through these doors. So the bank got a huge reaction. I mean, this campaign ran in December for 5 years, virtually unchanged. Because it had got such a hit for them. You'd have Ryan Tubridy out there welcoming the people back. The backdrop would be this tag between the two doors in T1 and T2, as these people milled out and were greeted lovingly, and hugs and kisses, and Ryan Tubridy there going, what's happening around me, type thing. So it was just a lovely thing, using real people as the theater. So you bring your message alive. It's not just straightforward, a kind of a wonderfully crafted AI visual. It's just this beautiful thing that has interaction. That's what gets me up in the morning. I love it.
Thank you, Ian, for sharing that. That's an incredible story. And I think the word theatre that you've used a couple of times there, the human engagement. I mean, airports can be quite emotional, particularly when loved ones are coming home. And that, the best present is about to walk through the doors, and to wrap the whole thing. And for people that are familiar with Dublin Airport, and particularly Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 now, which is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a footfall of millions and millions and millions and millions of people. And that's a huge activation. I suppose the fact that it lasted for the years that it did, it was a true engagement. It was an emotional connection to a brand, and it really worked as a story. And I know it was a big success, so congratulations on that. And I don't want to skip over as well what you were mentioning about Vodafone and their activation with the electric picnic, because any festival goers, I'm sure, will have heard of electric picnic. It's a big event. And I love the idea of Dr. Beat handing out prescriptions to the festival goers. I think that's a really smart thing to do. And you've just, in those couple of case studies that you've shared with our audience today, you've already begun that discussion in terms of connecting humans, connecting story, engaging with brands, and thinking a little bit differently. So we love that here on the Global Discussion. So thank you for sharing that, Ian. That's a great introduction. The other thing I want to ask you, though, as well, is I know that you're an awards judge, and that association, the APMC, it really represents, doesn't it, the promotional marketing sector within Ireland. So could you tell us a little bit about that, just for our audience today?
The APMC is a wonderful association, and again, part of this whole experiential, promotional, and activation side of thing that is really close to my heart. I've spent many years working with clients, developing these type of campaigns that sit along and complement, as they call it, above the line. And there's no real above the line, there's no such thing as above the line. It's kind of like the only line is up, you know. So it's so this mixture of marketing disciplines with the APMC. So the APMC essentially uphold the highest levels of these marketing campaigns, which again, point of purchase, activation. I mean, my work as a judge, this is the third year I've been asked to come back and judge, is an incredibly privileged thing to be able to look at, immerse yourself in, and celebrate some really wickedly wonderful ideas that sometimes people don't see or hear about if they're not in this country. So to be able to award them in this country and have the Grand Prix and the goals go into Europe is just wonderful. That the last few years you have I mean, like, wonderful ideas, like one of my favorite one was the first shop entirely staffed and stocked by cancer survivors, and it was called The Shop That Nearly Wasn't. And it was a wonderful pop-up thing that ran for a few weeks, where cancer survivors sold and stocked stuff, and this created a huge feedback and huge publicity for the breakthrough cancer research. Again, you look at Heineken 00 setting up activation pit stops in forecourts on the way to music festivals to literally reward the designated driver, who's probably quite pissed off to just be able to drive, but no doubt they will be rewarded on the other side. But to be rewarded there as they go with winning prizes and being able to sample the product 00, so they can maybe have a sup or two on their way. It's stuff like that, and it's really high visibility, and it really does get some really positive feedback, and the clients love what we do because we're creating theater, we're creating things that they're not expecting. You know, I mean, even you go with Coca-Cola, repurposing their aluminium cans for installations in wooded areas, in music festivals, and people will put together and cut out these leaves and put them up on these wonderful trees, and again, there's a sense of, again, repurposing. And this campaign was called Melodic Wood because there was a sense of music with it too. So there's a whole pile of stuff that goes on with reviewing these things, and it's also technology is a very big thing, part of that as well. So to be able to do that, see it through into Europe, and now I've been asked to be a European judge with Impact, which is the European Promotional Council. So I can then see how they fare, the goals and the Grand Prix fare in Europe, and then who knows where we'll go. But it's such a joyous thing to be able to be part of, to celebrate this wonderful work.
Well, yeah, congratulations on the judging positions, and there's no better person, in my view, Ian, because of your extraordinary work that you do in this area, and some of the examples that you've shared with us. And I know there are many others, but they are exceptionally well executed, well thought through, and I know very much respected within the industry. So thank you for sharing that information with us.
Well, there's also a sense, Simon. I mean, again, I'm one of the 4 judges, as you can tell from my irreverence and my cheekiness, that we're on the creative side. I work with people who are all about the KPIs and all about the numbers and stuff like that. And again, don't get me wrong, I won't diss them at all. I love them, but I'm looking for magic. I'm looking for emotion. I'm looking for smiles, as well as the bums on the seats and the numbers. But they often, if they do it right, come hand in hand.
Spoken like a true creative, Ian. And we love creatives here on the Global Discussion. The other thing I want to ask you while I've got you, Ian, is I'd like to ask our podcast guests a little bit about their learning style and also about their favorite books. So when it comes to books, what can you share with us today? What are you reading? Are you an audio book kind of person? Are you watching things? Are you learning by listening to podcasts? Or do you just really like picking up books?
Books. I do like books. I mean, this is a mad time we live in with feckin', if I can say feckin' phones, where you tend when you have your downtime, first thing you're doing is reading your phone. Put the phone down, please. There's nothing more tangibly and lovely than a book that you open up and you can smell, and kind of even more so. I mean, I know there's a lot of audio books out there that are really good, but I love picking up books. And essentially, my drive with and my interest with books are about well-known people and how they work it, and what their process is. Why are they successful? What have they gone through to become as successful as they are? And a lot of the time I'll be reading about musicians, because I'm one of my things is music. I have, funny enough, I'm obsessed with music and the various different styles and genres and stuff like that. We love vinyl and all that sort of stuff. So I mean, I love to find out what makes them tick. What goes on behind the scenes. There's a book I've just read which is called Exit Stage Left, which is the curious afterlife of pop stars. A guy called Nick Durden, I think is you pronounce his name, and he's gone in the last few years and interviewed people of the last 20 years as one-hit wonders. What they're doing now, whether medication has ruined their lives, or how they're doing now. So everyone from Scritti Politti to Robbie Williams and U2, who are still on top of their game. Some people fall foul of it, but it's lovely to see what their process is and what made them do what they do, and how the hit singles happened and all that sort of stuff. Also within the advertising game, as there's a guy called Dave Trott, and he at this stage is getting on in years, but he's still full of life, and he writes this regular blog and article for Campaign magazine in England, and every so often he puts these mini stories into books, and they make for fascinating reading. They're like two or three or maybe 4 pages each, but they all are anecdotal. They have a reason to be at the end, and something we can learn from them. But again, they are such a pleasure to read, and also for us being time poor phone watchers and our wonderful Gen Z or Gen Zers out there who might be sometimes just need to read things really quickly and get the point really soon. These books are gold dust. So it's really, I find that's kind of enjoyable because they're all true and they're all fact based. So that's
I couldn't agree more. I mean, books can be that magic, that gold dust, and you're referring to magic earlier. And I think that sort of biographical story, where you can actually dive into somebody's background, their upbringing, their life story, what's impacted them, what makes them think the way they do. You mentioned Scritti Politti there, and I'm sure we did an episode with Tom Morley, which is a great episode. And Tom, I think, is one of those truly creative creatures. His backstory and how he founded the band, if people want to go back and listen to that episode, it's incredible. Talk about things that happen by random or by I'm not sure how it happened, but I mean, the story he tells about it's amazing that it ever happened the way that it happened. And one of the first few people to do DIY records, this sort of whole indie type approach to music, and it's a phenomenal story. But I echo what you're saying, and I understand what you're saying in terms of that creativity, that magic, that gold dust. I think they're great words to describe the true learning that you can get from picking up a good book. And I, like you, I like nothing more than cracking the spine on a paperback or picking up the hardback book. It's the smell of the paper, the ink on the paper. I really love it too. And I do. I'm a big audio guy too in terms of audiobooks, but there's something quite special, and no doubt, like you, with the vinyl. For those people watching the video behind you, your shelving of vinyls. I'm surrounded by bookcases here, and there is something magical about it. So thanks for sharing that, Ian. The other thing I wanted to ask you, though, while I've got you, is about people that you admire or people that have inspired you along the way. Now, this could be somebody back in your childhood, could be somebody more recently, or somebody through the work that you do. When I ask you that, who springs to mind when I ask you about people that you admire?
Well, again, it's no one really specifically, other than there are certain character traits. I mean, I look at the underdog, the mavericks, the creative thinkers who sometimes get nowhere, or they get somewhere and they fall down, they stand back up, they put their armor back on, they jump back into the fight. I mean, when I was a kid, the first football match I ever remember watching was Spurs. And Spurs lost against whatever team. But for some reason, I gravitated towards the underdog. And I just said, okay, I'm going to be a Spurs supporter. I'm going to see if they can clamber back up the league type thing. There was, again, as far as the underdog and these kind of people who are least likely to succeed and how they overcome certain things. There's that famous story, and one that I really do enjoy. So, and very quickly, it's the story of that gentleman, Tim Martin, who about 40 years ago, he was in school, and his main teacher, his head teacher, said, "You will amount to nothing. Mr. Martin, you will amount to nothing. You will be going nowhere." And so, armed with that, he left school and he went to work in a pub, which is okay, fair enough, that's grand. And then he worked up to be manager, and eventually he actually bought the pub. And then, as the years rolled by, he expanded that and became a very good businessman and bought several pubs. And what he decided to do is, as he bought these pubs, he'd name them after the teacher who told him years before that he would amount to nothing. So he named his pubs after that teacher, whose name was Mr. Weatherspoon. And now he has about 852 Mr. Weatherspoons out there. So it's kind of like that sting. So it's kind of like, okay, amount to nothing. I just love that kind of, and also I love that sense of humor. He's quite a creative individual, this guy. So look, it's the strivers, it's the mistake makers, it's the people who lead from the shadows. To me, I love leaders who lead from behind. They lead silently. You know who you are. There's a presence you can feel when you're in the room. I've worked with a lot of really brilliant leaders in the advertising game, and I've also worked with a few pseudo leaders. But look, they all have great talent. They all have something, and the trick is to grab what you need from these people. There was a thing once where I worked in one of the big agencies. As I worked with BBDO, I worked with Ogilvy, I worked with various other agencies in town, along with some smaller boutique ones. But there was, I remember being asked about how you navigate through people who have various different agendas. And I liked it onto a movie when I was asked, kind of, how do you work around this? It's kind of like, I said, well, in some agencies, it's a bit like that movie, The Sixth Sense, with what's the guy's name? Bruce Willis, and the kid who sees dead people. Well, when I would go into agencies, sometimes you can see people who probably shouldn't be there, and the trick is to see them and work around them, or to see them and make them better. I mean, I had a scenario with one of the agencies I went into where I sat down. I was coming as the new creative director. Sat down. I was running this department, and I had the directors of this agency sit down and say, "Okay, one of the first things we'd like you to do, Ian, we have 4 people here. We'd like you to work out exit strategies for them." And I went, "Oh, okay. Well, the trick is for me to find out whether they need them first." So I said, yeah, "I'm not going to be doing it now. Give me 2 months." And so for over the next 8 weeks, I worked out, there's one person who was a misfit and needed to be in a different department, in a different agency, and I was able to help him go there. But there's 3 others who were just geniuses, they were just not managed, and I was able to sit down with them and really work with them, and they have gone from strength to strength. I'm not saying it's because of me, but you just look for the nuggets in these people, and you kind of like, you push them on and motivate them and inspire them and give them, you give them that sense of passion that I have, So look, sorry, I'm waffling on, but there's that sense anyway.
Yeah, and I really like that. And you said something quite insightful there, the people that can lead from behind. And quite often, because we live in this world of influence and, social media, where you think that the people who are constantly out there shouting about it are actually the leaders, when actually, in real life, some really great inspirational creative leaders, they don't say an awful lot. They listen an awful lot. But when they do talk, it's normally that gold dust that you're referring to before. So I like that. And it seems like you know that term, you like people who have that sort of grace under fire, and the people that are really, what was it Steve Jobs say, putting a dent in the universe, people that are making a bit of a difference. Yeah, I think that's great. That's really, really great. The other thing I wanted to ask you in a similar vein is about advice. So when I ask you about the best advice you've received, maybe it's something that stuck with you, Ian, or maybe it's something that you pass on to others. What springs to mind when I ask you that question?
Okay, my profession is creative. As I said, I'm paid to dream and invent and work with other dreamers and other inventors, visual or written word or what have you. So again, it's all about, for me, the creativity. I think the one thing that happened to me years ago when I was much younger, and it was kind of shocking for me, but not, I suppose, in a bad way. Years ago, when I was a young creative director, the agency I worked with paid for me to head off to a 2-day workshop in London, in the Direct Marketing Association offices in London. And the title of the workshop was Creativity in Direct Marketing. And I've always loved direct marketing. I love that, as the smell, touch, taste, that sense, again, as we talked about the books, the smell and kind of something that opens up, something that's personalized to you. Direct marketing really, really works for even, and now you'll see direct marketing, paper-based, card-based, recycled as it is, and sustainable as it is getting much more of a resurgence. Because we have in this digital age, if you get a focused, relevant offer in the post to you, personalized, you're going to interact with that. And you might, whereas you might just delete an email that might not get you as far, although it may have links and all that sort of stuff. But something that's tangible can work just as well. And people actually will keep them now, I found out, But here am I, years ago, in this wonderful workshop with all these esteemed people. We had a meet and greet. We chatted to each other. I found out that a lot of the delegates, or the people in this workshop, came from various walks of life. A lot of them from marketing departments, a few of them from sales departments in smaller companies and bookshops and what have you. And I was one of 1 or 2 creatives from agencies. I thought, well, that's kind of odd. They all wanted to learn what I do, creativity and direct marketing. So we all sat down. There was about 25 of us, and this guy came in, a an esteemed creative director of one of the big DM agencies. One of the first, he said, "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Great to see you here. I just like to kind of get a sense of where you're coming from. Would everybody in sales please stand up?" So I went, okay, sales. I'll sit back here. And I was kind of slightly smug. I'm in creative. It's creative for direct marketing. Why would I stand up? So there were about half the room stood up, kind of sheepishly. They were kind of going, "Oh, what's happening? Are we in the wrong place?" type thing. So the lecturer said, "Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Would anyone sitting down please leave because you're in the wrong workshop?" So I mean, the reaction I had was, "OMG, what the hell has just happened there? This is, I was shocked." And then he clarifies this, "Look, only messing, guys. I just want you to know that we are all in sales. Whether you are selling a book door to door, or whether you're selling a product or what have you, is at the end of the day, you can be in creative terms, be selling an idea internally, pitching that towards internally to other creatives, to other project managers, and ultimately you're pitching and selling to your clients. Never forget that." So that's something I never forgot. Mind you, I forgot the gentleman's name, which I shouldn't have, but that's probably just a bit of dementia. What can I tell you? But that was the best piece of advice, and it's something that's really stayed with me. We're in sales, guys, whether you are an arty person or not.
Yeah, I get that a lot. That's a great story, and one that you haven't forgotten, right? Stays with you to this day.
No.
So let's find out a little bit more about Ian now, in terms of your passions. What are you passionate about? What do you focus on? What keeps you inspired? So when I ask you that, Ian, what comes to mind?
Well, okay. I mean, without getting too cliched, of course, I'm passionate about my family life, my daughters, my beautiful wife. I'm passionate about creativity. I love the fact that I can sit down my desk, or I can go to a meeting in the morning, and the next thing I know, it's 5 PM, and I feel as if only 5 minutes have gone by, and I'm going, it's just when you're passionate about something, or when you're involved, or you get lost in something, time goes really fast. I mean, and as you get older, time goes really fast. My father used to call your middle ages the hurricane years type thing. Now, for me, working within creativity can be like a hurricane, because you're flying around the place, but it's so gratifying when you do get to where you need to be, but that can be fast. As I said, for somebody who doesn't have a note in their heads, I've never played an instrument. I can't play the piano. It's kind of like chopsticks, maybe badly, kind of like, I'd love to learn the banjo, but I haven't got around to it. My wife won't let me. She'd go, no, it'll go wrong. Believe me, I mean, I remember at a Bee Gees concert years ago, bless their cotton socks, when all 3 of them were still with us. And I know Barry's still with us, but I remember it was a corporate do. And I mean, like, they want you to dance. So I remember everyone sitting down, and whatever kind of Staying Alive came on, and I stood up and started dance. And Erica, my wife, looked at me and said, "I think you need to sit down." So again, rhythm, rhythm was never there. Yet I'm obsessed with music. Everything from Motown to Rammstein to I mean, I'm going through an Edith Piaf phase at the moment. I cannot understand. As I love the French language. I have schoolboy French, but what the wonderful thing about somebody like Edith Piaf is that I see her voice and her language as another instrument, and you just get immersed in it. And then I'll be off listening to Dahi, who is an Irish DJ musician, a whole pile of things. My daughters, I get every so often I kind of I'll ask my younger daughter Ali, so what about Neil Dexter? And she goes, "Who?" And then I play it for her, and she goes, "Oh, that's really cool." So I'm kind of role reversal type thing. But music to me is a phenomenal thing, and also the tangibility And that sense, again, we go back to direct marketing, we go back to the books, we go back to wonderful records. The buying a record from a loved artist is an event in itself. It's kind of, you open it up, there's spot lamination there, you can touch, smell, taste, whatever it is. It's such a wonderful thing. And the ritual of taking the record out, taking it out, whether it's colored marble or whatever, they're art forms. In an agency I consulted there recently, I was working with the guys in the digital department, and I was trying to explain to them about the joys of the record experience. And but it's only 20 minutes aside. And I went, but that's a ritual in itself. It makes you earn the music, you earn the love. It's a wonderful ritual. And again, you look at the Irish store, Golden Disc, the record CD, whatever store, who with the recent vinyl revolution in the last few years, they had a wonderful poster which said, it's kind of like, come on into our vinyl store, come on into our vinyl department and have a look and see. And then they went ... because no one ever comes around to see your MP3 collection. You know, it's kind of, you get your lyrics, everything. So there's a wonderful experience in music. I get also within what I do from a graphic design sense, is I work with musical people, musical artists, up and coming. Recently, I was able to package, design, and work with a wonderful Irish musician by the name of Gavin Fox. He's released his first album. I mean, it's tough. These guys are all starting out, so they're in YouTube. They're kind of all chipping away. And again, it seems to be prevalent now that artists, and sometimes famous artists, even the Radioheads of the world, sell through their websites, and they sell direct, and they don't feed into record stores. And they can make quite a decent living out of that. There's another musician that I started working with, a girl called Julie Beth Horton, and she writes wonderful music. So she's talking to film directors and various other people and getting her music into that. So it really is such a beautiful thing to be able to, just because I can't play the banjo doesn't mean I don't get to go to gigs and be backstage and talk to the musicians about their process and how they do things. So there's a lot of love, a lot of energy, and a lot of celebration there. So it's really gratifying. So music is a passion. I just wish I could play something.
Well, I love that, Ian, and you took me back immediately to my vinyl collection, because although I stream music, I've got the CD collection, I've got the vinyl collection, but there's been a huge resurgence in vinyl, particularly among younger people. I see it an awful lot now, and I see groups and bands and individual artists releasing things on vinyl. I also saw people releasing things back on cassette. I don't know where they're getting the cassette players from, but it is a thing, and it's that tangible, that you use the word tangible, that there's some ritual, there's something that you connect with, and whether it's the album art, the internal sleeves, a double album, the lyrics, the cover notes, there was something quite magical about that experience. And I think there are many people listening who would appreciate true vinyl and the quality of audio.
Oh yeah,
and it is an interesting thing. And as you say, for a new artist coming out today, there are so many different channels, which is both an opportunity and a challenge to get their music heard, to get it understood. But again, it's back to that emotional cut through, I think, isn't it? It's back to that. That little bit of creative, that little bit of thought that's gone into something can often make all the difference when it comes to getting their music heard. And shared.
It's tough. It's really tough. It's tough.
Look, before we run out of time, we've talked about some wonderful things here, but I wanted to ask you, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we finish up on our podcast episode today?
Kind of. Last week was my birthday, and my sister sent me a card, and it was a card with a quote from David Bowie. And kind of like, so she didn't want to make me feel terribly old and kind of another year, blah, blah, blah. But this quote was kind of something that resonated. It might be a famous quote, but it's the first time I'd ever heard it, which Bowie said, aging is an extraordinary process where you become the person you always should have been. And I went, and I don't know why it resonated with me. It was kind of like, so is this the person I need to be? And it's kind of, it really resonated. As you get older, you become a little bit more confident. You also know you still make mistakes. You also know you still are here to ask a huge amount of questions. I mean, it's asking questions. Like it reminds me of that little bit of that thing that says, how many art director designers does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is, does it have to be a light bulb? So there's keep asking questions, ultimately, if you have that passion inside you, no matter what you do, look, what if you're licking stamps, whatever, be passionate about it. And as long as you have that passion, and as long as you don't tend to so many people I know in this world run to stand still. They don't stop and smell the roses. I mean, there was an interesting thing. I went and saw Paul McCartney in concert there a few years ago. And by God, is he still rocking it, I mean, he's 80 something at this stage, but halfway through his paltry 3.5-hour set of Beatles mania and Wings and everything, which was just crazy. I recommend, if you can ever see this guy, see it before it's too late. But he just stopped the concert. He says, and everything became silent. People started flicking stopped flashing phones. And he says, and he just stopped and says, I just want to stop and see and look at you all, and I want to smell the roses. I want to be in this moment, and I want to see you, and I want to stop playing, because we can be on a furious journey, So I thought that was really, really great. So that resonated with me. So it's, stop, smell the roses, be passionate about what you do, keep asking questions, and also keep things interesting if you can. I mean, and enjoy the people around you, and enjoy the journey. I know that's probably a little bit kind of like spiritual, but that's what I throw out there.
Well, do you know what, Ian? I love the David Bowie quote. Aging is an extraordinary process where you become the person you always should have been. I think that's truly wonderful, because there's a lot of sense in that quote. So thank you for sharing that. Before we wrap up, if people want to get in touch with you about the great work that you do, or get in work with the company and the talented people that you work with, what's the best place to send people to? Is it LinkedIn? Is it the website?
It's possible. I mean, it's possibly LinkedIn. LinkedIn is kind of like, I'm busy on LinkedIn. I have a therefour page on LinkedIn. And that's possibly where I live. I do have a website that's kind of, again, that's the one thing you learn as you get older, is what you're not good at. Websites, I work with people who do websites, and so I have a straightforward website there. But essentially, LinkedIn is where I am. I take photographs and share local stuff on Instagram. But I think LinkedIn is probably the place to be, really. And I'm quite active with my APMC work and with my creative work, and I also, the therefour page will spit out kind of like I trawl looking for great ideas, and I like to celebrate a lot of stuff that's not about me or the colleagues I work with. It's just damn good ideas and damn good campaigns. LinkedIn.
Perfect. Okay. Well, look, that brings us nicely to the end of this episode today with Ian McColl. Ian, thank you for being with us today. Thank you to everybody who's been watching or listening to this episode around the world. Make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, do all the things I need you to do to help support the podcast. And I hope you'll join me back here for more discussions with creatives, leaders, and thinkers. So thank you, Ian. It's been wonderful to catch up with you today.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.